Just hours from now, the Senate will consider blocking President Trump's national emergency declaration.
A vote against President Trump is a vote against border security.
President Trump has grounded Boeing's 737 MAX airplane.
The safety of the American people and all people is our paramount concern.
Police furious with California's sanctuary state policy after an illegal immigrant allegedly stabbed a woman to death.
We are not here to shield admitted gangsters regardless of immigration status.
Within minutes of being sentenced to nearly 4 more years in prison, Manafort was indicted again in a totally separate case.
Beto O'Rourke will reportedly announce his bid hours after a glowing feature in Vanity Fair.
The guy served in 3 unmemorable terms in the U.S. Congress, but man, I'm just born to be in it, said Robert Francis O'Rourke.
Full House actress Lori Loughlin was released, get this, on a $1 billion bond.
All roads lead to narcissism. We've had a narcissistic turn in this country. It's a freaking mess.
And Rob just mentioned it a moment ago.
Why is that?
Today is March 14th, 3/14. It's Pie Day.
That is the reason to be happy. What's your favorite pie?
Pecan with ice cream.
Oh, my dad's too. How about yours, Brian?
Something in a package. I like the
pie in a package.
Yeah, the pie in a package. You know those things you
like
get
from McDonald's?
Yeah, those two pies. They come in a little slot. You know what I'm talking
no
about?
Idea.
No,
what
you get one in a slot in McDonald's.
Ted, do you know what I'm talking about? You know
2 pies in a slot.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's
like a frozen pie that your mom pulls out.
Draw a little picture.
What'd you say? Oh yeah, the Drake's cakes. What'd you say?
That's a cake.
Like
yeah, Drake's or Hostess, yeah.
Okay.
I like
like
those
an oatmeal
things.
cream pie?
Yeah, I don't want a whole pie. I just want a bite.
All right, that's all
anyway,
good.
It's Pie Day. Have some pie.
Some warm apple pie a la mode.
There you go. All right, sounds great. Meanwhile, just hours from now, the U.S. Senate is going to consider blocking President Trump's national emergency declaration.
But even if it passes, the president says he's ready to use his veto powers for the first time.
Griff Jenkins is live down in Washington as the president issues one last warning. Hey, Griff.
Hey, good morning, guys. Think about what we're about to watch. The Republican-led Senate is about to issue a stinging rebuke of the president's border declaration. Well, he's warning senators on both sides of the aisle they're making a big mistake voting against him, and he's found his veto pen.
Anybody going against border security, drug trafficking, human trafficking, that's a bad vote. We'll see whether or not I have to do the veto, and it will be, I think, all very successful regardless of how it all works out.
And yesterday, Vice President Pence toured Customs and Border Protection's training facility in Harpers Ferry, West Virginia, sending a message to Republican senators. But as it stands, 5 are signaling they will vote with the Democrats. Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, Rand Paul, Tom Tillis, and Mike Lee. Now, Lee attempted a last-minute compromise with a proposal supporting this declaration, but putting limits on future presidents' use of emergency declarations. It was shot down. Meanwhile, Minority Leader Chuck Schumer is bringing pressure.
You ought to stand up to fear. Do the right thing no matter who is in the White House. Our Republican friends know the right thing to do. They should not be afraid to do it.
Here's the math. It only takes 4 defections to block, which means they've got 1 to spare. But even if it does pass today, it's clear that there are not enough votes to override a veto, which would be a 2/3 vote. Guys?
That's right. All right, Griff, thank you very much. And the president has made it very clear he's going to veto. When you think about the Mike Lee resolution that he was suggesting, where essentially this time they get through with this particular resolution of disapproval, but then the president would limit his own presidential power. Why would President Trump ever agree to that?
Yeah, it was just such a stupid thing to troll around. But meanwhile, we have this Fox News alert. As expected, and as tweeted out yesterday, or as texted out to a local Fox station yesterday, Beto O'Rourke will officially join the 2020 quest to become the Democratic nominee and the next president of the United States.
He is on the cover of Vanity Fair. There's an article in there that we've all written. It talks about his family, his 3 kids, his wife. When they recognized that he had a spark, that he had a gift, his wife says, we realized he had a gift when we were in Houston. It was the 3rd stop in the Senate campaign, which Ted Cruz won. She said said every seat was taken, every wall, every space in the room was filled. You could feel the floor moving almost. It was not totally clear that Beto was what everyone was looking for, but just like that, people were ready for something.
Just like that. And so Beto, different candidates have had different ways to announce. This is one of the most unique. The fact of the matter is he texted a TV station yesterday down in Texas, KTSM. They received a text, and he said, I'm really proud of what El Paso did and what El Paso represents. It's a big part of why I'm running, and that really tipped off everybody he's running. This city is the best example of this country at its best. So Beto O'Rourke has launched his 2020 run for president. His last run was for Texas Senate, as Ainsley said, and keep in mind he lost to Ted Cruz.
All right, so Vanity Fair has a huge article and feature on him. It's almost as if they helped launch his campaign. Here's a quote from it. He says, I want to be in it, man. I'm just born to be in it. They also point out that he has this huge library, as if it's a big plus that he reads books. We would assume that. And he talks to all the presidential libraries there, and the writer writes, there's always a sense that he belongs on that, as if a book of president's going to be in there. But listen, he's got a lot of charisma. He's got a lot of presence. I know one of the reasons he's not running for Senate is because he personally gets along with Senator John Cornyn and didn't really relish the fact of running against him. But, man, I know Abraham Lincoln did it, but it's very tough to lose an election for the Senate and then try to get the ultimate prize, and that's the presidency.
That's right. He says his biggest vulnerability is being a white man in a Democratic Party that's yearning for a woman or a person of color. He says what's different, he was complimenting some of the other candidates in the Democratic Party in the article, but he says he's a youthful uniter. He's willing to listen and learn from right-wing voters, and he's willing to work with Republicans, he says.
Okay, keep in mind he is from down in Texas. What does he stand for? Well, he has been in the U.S. Congress. He's had some posts in local politics down in El Paso. Here are some of Beto O'Rourke's positions. While the President of the United States is for the wall, Beto O'Rourke is against the wall. He voted against ICE. He voted against Kate's Law. And he voted against the Trump tax cuts. But wait, there's more.
He supports single-payer health care, voted against restrictions on late-term abortions, voted against sanctioning Iran, called law enforcement the new Jim Crow.
And remember, he answered the question, what do you think about a fence, a wall, a barrier? If he's elected, he wants to take up the barrier. He said take out the fence. Right. So, man, you talk about a different policy when it comes to border control. I don't know how many people in Texas are going to feel about that, San Diego, New Mexico, or Arizona. But President O'Rourke would have a free-for-all at the border or good electronics.
Well, you know what? It would be a binary choice. One person, if it were Beto O'Rourke versus Donald Trump is for a wall. Beto O'Rourke wants to take the wall down. Karl Rove is somebody who is watched Texas politics for a very long time, and he thinks it's curious that Vanity Fair came out with this cover with the Fawning Review as well and said this on the channel last night.
I think it is interesting that he has essentially made a pro forma announcement of his presidential candidacy in a magazine with the term vanity in it. The guy served a couple of terms on the city council of El Paso and 3 unmemorable terms in the U.S. Congress, but man, I've just been born to be in it. It's a pretty extraordinary article.
Yeah, he just talks about how as a kid he was a screw up, embarrassed his dad. His dad actually stopped talking to him.
Lots of colorful language in the article, right?
Yeah, no kidding. He said in Vanity Fair, you can probably tell that I want to run. I do. I think I'd be good at it. But of course, ladies and gentlemen, it's up to all of you.
Now, let's see what the opposition research comes with other Democratic candidates who might not be impressed with Beto O'Rourke now that they're running against him.
All right. Coming out on the stage on
He says
skateboard.
he doesn't prepare for any speeches.
Yeah, I know. Right. He just goes out there and wings it. He says, and if I'm not prepared, I'll just go up there and introduce myself and then take a bunch of questions.
All right.
All right. So anyway, we're going to have the video. He officially has a video out. We believe it became available just about 9 minutes ago. There's kind of a technological process in converting it from, I don't know, videotape, photomat to something that we can show on TV. We will have that for you in a little while.
We are at Photomat right now. We have a PA.
We got one right out in front.
They're working on it.
All right. Meanwhile, it's 6:10 here in New York City, and Jillian's got a news from the mob.
That's right.
right, good morning. So let's start with this Fox News alert now and get you caught up to speed. A New York City mob boss is gunned down outside his home. Gambino family leader Frankie Cali shot several times in Staten Island. The gunman sped away in a blue pickup truck and is on the run. Now, it's unclear if this was a mafia hit or a rogue gunman. Cali is the highest-ranking mobster killed in New York since 1985, when John Gotti ordered the murder of Gambino boss Paul Castellano. We will keep you updated. Also breaking right now, Robert Mueller's top prosecutor is reportedly stepping down, signaling the Russia probe may soon be coming to an end. According to NPR, Andrew Weissman will leave the special counsel's office and DOJ altogether. He was the leading attorney in the case against Paul Manafort. Today, Congress is expected to ask the FAA why it waited so long to ground Boeing 737 MAX planes. The agency planning to brief lawmakers as President Trump temporarily suspends the jets. The Fed sounding the alarm over new evidence showing a startling connection between the deadly crashes in Ethiopia and Indonesia. Most airlines with grounded fleets will let you rebook or request a refund. The Powerball jackpot now a whopping $495 million, the 8th largest jackpot in Powerball history. No one claiming the prize during last night's drawing. Those winning numbers, 18, 36, 45, 47, 69, and a Powerball of 14. The next drawing is this Saturday, so get your tickets.
All right. Almost 500 million?
Yep.
All right. That got our sound place. I'll get a ticket, I guess.
All right, Jillian, thank you.
Thanks, Jillian. All right, ICE wanted this illegal immigrant detained 9 times, and now he's charged with murder. The police union leader from that county is furious, and he joins us live next.
Plus, it could be the most patriotic kid ever. The bow tie boy singing the national anthem has officially gone viral. Listen.
For the free.
You got an illegal immigrant and known gang member with a long rap sheet under arrest in California for the brutal slaying of 59-year-old Bambi Larson. She was killed in her own home. It happened in San Jose, California.
She was stabbed to death. The mayor blasting the county's policy of ignoring requests by ICE, which issued 9 detention orders against him prior to her murder and issued a 10th after his arrest.
Paul Kelly is the president of San Jose Police Officers Association, demanding the sanctuary laws be changed. Because of those laws, this guy was protected, ICE is kept at bay, and he goes out and kills. What's it going to take for some reasonable, rational person to allow law enforcement to do their job, sir?
You know, it's simple. If you are undocumented and you are committing violent crimes and you're convicted, you should go to jail, do your time, and then be deported. It's that simple.
Why didn't that happen?
Well, there's definitely a problem with the laws. If the laws weren't as messed up as they were, our victim would be alive. What has to happen?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. What has to happen is, whether it's state laws or county laws that created this, that's our problem, and those need to be changed immediately, and that's what we're asking for.
Well, are you against the sanctuary city theory that if you tell people they're not going to be deported, they'll be more honest about unsavory characters amongst them?
If there is violations in regards to violent crimes, whether it's the sanctuary state laws, whether it's certain county laws throughout California and across this nation, they absolutely need to be deported after serving their time.
If you look at what he's been accused in the past, possession of methamphetamine, kidnapping, burglary, if he were in our country legally, would he be behind bars and would she still be alive today?
Absolutely. This is a problem that everyone needs to focus on. The American police officer is tired of the debate. What we are concerned about is fixing these laws in California and in these counties and across the nation now, before other people in our community are injured.
Yeah, so listen to what they're saying. This is James Williams. He says he blames ICE. He says ICE should have gotten a warrant here. They could have gotten a warrant here. And the county's practice has always been to honor warrants that are issued. Why didn't they have a warrant?
I think it's important that it's as simple as picking up the phone. In January, one of the most current ICE detainers that was on was ignored, and 45 days later, Bambi was dead.
Tell us about her. What do you know about her? Wasn't he stalking her for a while? How did it get to this?
Yes. He was actually in that neighborhood looking at her and others, and he was stalking her. And essentially, what has to happen is these people need to get to the table, leaders, legislators, and seriously talk about what's going on in California in order to stop these laws, because they're not working.
Let me ask something. If law enforcement combines gets together and starts pushing back on their own democratically led politicians in that state, that's pretty much the only thing you can do, because there's no Republican pushback or significant presence there.
Absolutely. What I can say is this. This guy's a monster, and there's absolutely no reason in the world Bambi should have died. There's others that we obviously know and have talked about. Officer Singh in Newman, California. The same thing. In regards to deportation, we're not talking about dreamers and jaywalking tickets. What we're talking about is violent sexual predators that are convicted, and there should be no protection for them in this country if they do that. They're trying to protect
illegals from ICE. That's the problem. That's what politicians are doing, trying to vilify ICE workers and ICE officers instead of vilifying the illegals.
And as a result, this lady is dead, and she leaves behind a son. Thanks so much for joining us, Paul.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Felicity Huffman and Lori Loughlin sparking national outrage after being charged in that massive college scam. Tomi Lahren says it's time to stop idolizing celebrities, and she joins us next.
Plus, a college team can't even stay in the state they're competing in, and they can thank Governor Andrew Cuomo for that. You're not going to believe it.
Welcome back to our program. Hey, later today, the British Parliament is going to decide whether or not to delay Brexit, or the British exit.
Yeah, welcome to the story that never ends. Benjamin Hall is live in our London bureau. Benjamin, it's hard to imagine a bigger mess.
And you know what, Brian Stephen Ainsley, things are going from bad to worse. Yesterday we saw members of Theresa May's own cabinet and government voting against her to remove no deal off the table. That was one of the key threats she had against the European Union. Parliament now rejecting both no deal and also her deal, which they have said is some kind of a useless middle ground. So now Theresa May threatening Parliament with a stark choice. She's saying, look at my deal again, or we risk staying inside Europe.
The options before us are the same as they always have been. We could leave. We could leave with the deal which this government has negotiated over the past 2 years. We could leave with the deal we have negotiated but subject to a second referendum, but that would risk no Brexit at all.
The European Parliament are now asking the UK to decide what exactly it is they do want, what relationship they want, having rejected everything else. And today, they made steps forward to decide whether or not they should open trade talks directly with the Trump administration. Today, we will hear another vote in Parliament, and they'll be voting to see whether or not they should extend Article 50, delay Brexit. That means there's every chance from there that the UK doesn't leave the EU. Back to you.
Clearly an emotional issue. Thank you so much, Benjamin.
That's a nice way of saying it's a mess. Like Brian
You
said,
can't even hear her.
Big mess.
Screaming over her.
All right.
All right, it is the largest college cheating scam ever prosecuted.
And it's going to get bigger. Operation Varsity Blues busting the rich and famous in some cases, like, for example, Felicity Huffman and Lori Loughlin, for paying millions to get their kids into elite colleges.
Here with the reaction to the ongoing fallout is Fox Nation host Tomi Lahren, who's out on the West Coast where a lot of these celebrities live. Tomi, what do you make of Operation Varsity Blues?
Well, listen, in Hollywood and elsewhere in the entertainment industry, when they're not cozying up to or covering up for people like Harvey Weinstein, Jussie Smollett, R. Kelly, the list goes on, they are bribing to get their children into elite universities. And look, this is really par for the course. They don't think that they're going to get caught because these elitists really never think that they're going to get caught. They think that there's a separate system for them, that they deserve it, that they're entitled to this. Meanwhile, they preach all the time about fairness and equality, and they are the moral wardens of our time, and then they do something like this. I wish I could say I'm surprised, but sadly, I am not at all.
Dr. Drew had this to say about the whole issue. Watch.
All roads lead to narcissism. Really, we've had a narcissistic turn in this country for the last 30 to 50 years. When I first started working in a psychiatric hospital, I saw all kinds of different personality disorder diagnostic spectrums. Around the mid-90s, cluster B was all we saw. 100% of the time. Sociopath, narcissist, borderline. And if you are a parent, your child is an extension of you, and you cannot stand to see them uncomfortable. And so you have to save them from every discomfort. What their achievements are your achievements, so you have to make sure they achieve. It's a freaking mess.
Yeah, and tell you what, Tommy, on top of that, the daughter from Lori Loughnan's daughter, when she gets word that, her mom's caught up in the scandal and she doesn't really belong at USC, she is actually on a yacht with one of the USC trustees.
Worth $100 million, the yacht.
Yeah, it really doesn't surprise me at all. And again, this is really bigger than just this scandal. This is just Hollywood in general. We idolize these people. We give them so many passes. After everything that's gone down with the entertainment industry in the last 3 to 5 years specifically, why are we still giving these people a pass? Why are we still idolizing them? Why are we still allowing them also to be the instructors of morality and listen to them on a variety of issues? Again, we need to throw it out. We need to pay attention to average Americans and experts and stop giving Hollywood so much credit because they don't deserve it.
And it's okay to make a lot of money. It's just you can't break the law. You can't think that you're better than everybody else.
Well, absolutely. And again, I think people are starting to see that the layers being peeled back on those in the entertainment industry, and we're going to be more skeptical, as we should be, and I hope that we are.
Now they've got to figure out what to do about the kids in school. That's coming up. Tommy, thank you very much. We'll be watching you at Fox Nation.
Thanks, Tommy.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, USC says we're going to do it on a case-by-case basis.
Well, because most of the kids didn't know what their parents were up to, so that everybody's in a pickle. All right, meanwhile, a bullet comes feet away from hitting a woman inside her home, but she says she was saved by God.
If it hadn't had the metal there, it might have came on in and hit one of us. It just means he's looking out after us.
Well, there you go. The incredible story of divine intervention coming up next.
And Pete Hegseth just sat down for an exclusive interview with our vice president. What is he saying about the crisis down at the border? Pete joins us live with the answer next.
Good morning, Pete.
For this country and for every single one of us. The challenges that we face right now, the interconnected crises in our economy, our democracy, and our climate have never been greater. We can invest in the dignity of those who work and those who seek to work. We can ensure that every single American can see a doctor and be well enough to live to their full potential. And all of us, wherever you live, can acknowledge that if immigration is a problem, it's the best possible problem for this country to have.
We are back with a Fox News alert. You just heard from Beto O'Rourke officially launching his bid for the White House. The former Texas congressman throwing his hat in the ring after losing his congressional campaign to Senator Ted Cruz last year. Entering an already crowded field, Beto is the 12th Democrat to officially declare a presidential run.
O'Rourke became a political celebrity, turning to social media to mobilize young voters and minorities. Let's bring in Pete Hegseth, the Fox and Friends weekend co-host. Actually, you went to talk to Mike Pence about immigration. That's one of the things that Beto O'Rourke talks the most about because he actually lives in El Paso, just a couple of blocks from Mexico.
Yeah, I mean, what we do know is that Beto loves Beto. Okay, so let's agree on that. Beto believes he is the second coming of who should run for president, but he wants to tear down the border wall. He believes in sanctuary cities. He doesn't support Kate's Law. This is a guy who sees the world completely opposite of President Trump. He's down on the border, believes that illegal immigration is okay, actually the lifeblood of this country. He will define that debate. Listen, he'll have some supporters. He will. But I don't know how he ultimately differentiates himself.
Pete, you know what's attractive about him? If people really believe he can deliver Texas, if he can deliver Texas, he reconfigures the map. You know, that's bigger than the Trump breaking the blue wall.
That's true, but he didn't defeat Ted Cruz. It's not clear how he would defeat President Trump in Texas in 2020.
Or maybe even a Joe Biden.
Or even a Joe Biden. We shall see. But the border will be a big issue. And today, as you all know, a big vote in the Senate whether or not to uphold the president's emergency declaration. And I had a chance to sit down with the Vice President Mike Pence in West Virginia. There's a training facility for Customs and Border Protection down there. It looks like we're sitting in the woods, but we're actually sitting in a training facility for our border agents. And I asked him, he had a stark message for senators, Republican senators, what this vote means about whether you support the president and security on the border. Take a listen.
All right, Mr. Vice President, what did you see here today?
This training facility is where our Customs and Border Protection personnel train through virtual reality and in real circumstances to make sure that the people that are on the front lines have the background and the experience to protect our border and come home safe.
It's a couple of guys in suits out in the woods right now. You were recently on Capitol Hill. The president declared a state of emergency on the border to get access to funds to build the wall that Congress wouldn't build. What is your message to senators on Capitol Hill? It's Republicans at this point wavering on where to vote on this.
It is undeniable that we have a crisis on our southern border. Now, Democrats continue to say that it's a manufactured crisis, but the facts tell the story. What we want to see the Senate do this week is to stand with the president, to stand with the president's declaration of a national emergency. Look, a vote against President Trump's national emergency is a vote against border security. A vote against the president's national emergency declaration is a vote to deny the humanitarian and security crisis that's happening at our southern border. So we're urging every member of the Senate, set politics aside, recognize that we have a crisis. The president has the authority under the National Emergencies Act. Vote down the resolution of disapproval, stand with the president, and stand for border security. That's what the American people want.
Do you see any crisis in legitimacy of a wall that has to be built through emergency funding? Is this something the Democrats will continue to rail against, tear down the wall?
You have to understand that the funding the president requested throughout the government shutdown, the funding that we're appropriating now under the law through the national emergency, is all funding that the Department of Homeland Security told us that they needed to construct a physical barrier, a wall in 10 areas of high-density population where the people wearing the green uniforms of Customs and Border Protection have told us that they need a barrier to do their job and to do it safely.
There's some reporting about an event recently AEI put on. Vice President Cheney had an interview with you, and he came after you and made some comments about how this administration's foreign policy seems more like the Obama administration than the Reagan administration, talking about NATO and the pullout from Syria. Your response to some of those criticisms from former Vice President Cheney?
Well, look, I have great respect for Vice President Cheney, and we had a good, vigorous debate over this past weekend. Look, when I told him when President Trump ran for office, he made it clear that he's no fan of foreign deployments, that he wanted to bring an end to these endless wars. I know there are some who don't like the fact that the president's called on our NATO allies to pay their fair share of our common defense, to live up to their commitments, but I just know that the American people appreciate.
There are many who do like that.
A president who looks at our allies and says, look, we're going to do our part. You need to do your part. And that's what we call being a leader of the free world.
Absolutely. Sticking with vice presidents, Joe Biden, former vice president, make it into the race. He famously called you a decent guy, and he took some heat for it. Your take on Biden possibly getting into the race?
Well, look, they've got an awfully big field on the other side. The reality that you see on the Democrat side is it's largely being driven by the most extreme liberal elements in their party. And the way Joe Biden caved in to liberal activists after making a kind comment toward me is evidence of the pressure that all of their candidates are going to face. So the truth of the matter is you've got a party on the other side that is prepared to run on open borders, socialism, abortion on demand, infanticide, Medicare for all, and the Green New Deal. And I like our chances in 2020.
Thank you very much, sir. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Pete.
Great job, Pete, and in particular the way you ended it right there about the field and the difference. Even Rahm Emanuel came out in the Atlantic and said, hey, Democrats, do you want to hand another 4 years to because of the Green Deal, because you're running too far to the left? This is a gift, it seems.
Very much so. And Beto O'Rourke, remember, he's the one who famously said, I want to tear down some of Trump's walls. That's the contrast. Take that to the American people. I think the vice president said it well. They feel confident about that.
And that was a mock wall in the background?
It was a training wall. So we got to actually follow the vice president through training as they train agents. This is the train-the-trainer environment where they then go out and train the rest of Border Patrol. So it's a very cool day.
All right, you got another big interview coming up, right?
Kirstjen Nielsen, the DHS secretary, will be on with us today at 7:30. Of course, she's got a lot to say about this vote as well today.
And is that going to be what you're wearing?
That was in a conference room, not the woods.
Not Don the Woods.
I'm wearing the same
Okay,
thing. Yes.
okay, fantastic.
I like the camo.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Right.
Very nice.
That would have been perfect for the Woods.
It would have been.
That would have been great.
Should have worn it yesterday.
That's what I'm saying. You have one day off.
Yeah,
No,
but then,
we wouldn't
Brian,
have been
we would not have been able to see him. Exactly. All right, Pete, thank you very much. We'll see you in an hour.
Jillian's behind you. She has some headlines for us.
Lots
Hey, Jillian.
of compliments on that tie today. I complimented it too. Looks
Oh,
nice.
really?
Yeah.
I did not see that.
Looks pretty good. Okay, let's get you caught up on some of your headlines, starting with this. A smuggler is caught on camera using 2 young girls as decoys at the border. You can see the 2 girls, just 6 and 9 years old, dropped over a wire fence into California to distract border agents. 10 people illegally crossed the border when the agents left their posts to help the children from El Salvador. Some college swimmers will need to stay in another state when they head to the NCAA championships in North Carolina. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo still hasn't repealed a ban on publicly funded travel to the state. In response to North Carolina's now defunct bathroom bill, which required transgender people to use facilities that matched their gender at birth. That rule was tossed out in 2017. It's being called an act of God. A framed photo of the Lord's Prayer stops a bullet from hitting a woman inside her home.
It hit this and fell down behind it. But if it hadn't had the metal there, it might have came on in and hit one of us. It just means he's looking out after us.
Wow, the stray bullet hitting the prayer 2 feet above Constance Effie's head in Kansas City. She had a minor heart attack, but she'll be okay. A 4-year-old boy is stealing hearts all across America with the national anthem. Listen to this.
For the love and of the free.
And slamming the parents charged in that college admissions scam, but didn't she lie about being Native American on her bar card?
Plus, breaking in Washington, Andrew Weissman, Robert Mueller's right-hand man, who's often on the left, reportedly stepping down. The judge.
We've got a Fox News alert. Robert Mueller's top prosecutor, his right-hand man, reportedly stepping down this morning, signaling the Russian probe could soon be coming to an end.
We'll see. According to NPR, Andrew Weissman, who was also the architect of the case against Paul Manafort, will leave the special counsel and DOJ.
All right, here to weigh in, Fox News senior judicial analyst Judge Andrew Napolitano. Judge, he's stepping down from a probe that's wrapping up. Is this big news?
Well, it depends how you look at it. He's either stepping down because his part of the probe, Manafort, is now over. He didn't get all the jail time they wanted him to get, but he got enough, and it's over. He's now going to sit in federal prison and presumably be tried here in New York. That's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is coming to an end. This is all a perfect storm. Manafort sentencing, Gates sentencing, Flynn sentencing, Weissman leaving. That would mean Bill Barr there, Rosenstein leaving. That would mean that the Mueller report, or reports, I believe there'll be more than one, are likely to come out soon. So there's 2 ways to look at this.
And while Mueller's name is on the probe, it's really Weissman who's the face of the probe in court.
He is the most experienced, most tenacious, and most skillful trial lawyer on their team.
Democrat.
So that
he's a Democrat.
He is a Democrat, yes. Bob Mueller's a Republican. That would indicate that he's certainly not going to be the trial lawyer in the Roger Stone case, which presently is scheduled to be tried in October, 7 months from now.
All right, what about Paul Manafort? He got about 7 years, a little bit more than 7 years.
This is a very unusual situation for Manafort. When he pleaded guilty in federal court before Judge Jackson, who sentenced him yesterday, the guilty plea was last year. The nature of what he said acknowledged not only that he committed bank fraud and mortgage fraud that violated federal crimes, but also that violated state crimes. Stated differently, the indictment that was revealed yesterday by a grand jury here in New York City, he has effectively already admitted to the behavior that he's been accused of under that. It'll be very easy for them to prosecute him. Why did they do it? Because they're worried that the president might pardon him, and the president does not have pardon power for state crimes.
What is New York? What's New York's business for? They don't have enough on their plate?
Well, they do have a lot on their plate, Brian, but these were New York banks that he committed the fraud in front of or against for a New York mortgage. The state actually waited until the federal case
case was over, which is the standard operating
So the
procedure.
president could pardon him, and yet then he's got to answer for the state crime.
Right. The interesting thing happens is what happens if he's not pardoned? How are they going to try him in state court if he's spending 7.5 years in a federal prison? An issue they'll have to work out.
Let's what can we? I can't wait for the Liberty File today on Fox Nation, which I can get on my app because I ordered it in pay.
Yes. You're
Right.
so good at this, Brian.
Right. It's your
nobody
show. It's
can
Liberty
promote.
File.
Thank
All
you.
right.
All the best.
Thanks,
Thank you very
Judge.
much. All right, meanwhile, straight ahead, a grim prediction. It could be the worst year for measles in decades. Hundreds of cases already confirmed. Now, one Texas doctor says he'll be turning away unvaccinated patients, doesn't want them in his waiting room. He will join us live next.
Plus, feeling the pressure at work or at home? Well, that Marine vet knows a thing or two about mental toughness. He's putting us through boot camp. Coming up. Used to be eradicated, but now the disease is spreading with nearly 280 confirmed cases, and the CDC says 2019 could be the worst year for measles since 1993.
And now a Texas pediatrician is taking a stand, refusing to treat unvaccinated children at his practice as the number of measles cases in his state grows to 11.
And that pediatrician, Dr. Albert Karam, joins us now. Thank you so much, Dr. Karam, for being with us.
Good morning, Stephen Ainsley.
Good morning. Tell us about measles. What are the symptoms?
So measles is a very highly contagious disease. It is a viral infection, not a bacterial infection, so antibiotics can't help you for this. And it causes initially a very bad runny nose, a cough, horribly red eyes, followed by a very particular rash that spreads throughout the body. In cases in which the measles spread, side effects include pneumonia, which can be life-threatening, and then, of course, a devastating disease called encephalitis or inflammation of the brain.
Right. I remember. I had it when I was a kid. Doctor, I understand you had it. You remember what that was like. If the disease was eradicated, why the comeback?
So eradication was declared, I believe, by the CDC in the early 2000s. Comebacks are going to happen from several sources, international travel to countries in which the disease is not eradicated, and then travels will come back into the United States. But the thing we're concerned about is the large number of children who are unvaccinated. And if a measles case gets into that population of unvaccinated children, we will have an outbreak, and it will be bad. For those that think that measles is a benign disease, just as you said, I had it as a child. I remember my mother turning the lights on and I would scream with pain.
Right.
I remember looking at my skin at the horrible rash that I had. So I remember it as a 4 or 5-year-old kid.
What, can you die from it?
Of course you can. Of course you can. All we have to do is look in Europe right now, where there were well over 70, almost 80,000 cases, predominantly in Ukraine, and there were 70-some-odd deaths. Here we are in a modern society, in European society, with that many deaths. And these are preventable deaths.
Right.
This is a preventable disease.
And that's one of the reasons you don't want to see children who are not vaccinated. Doctor, last week we had a young man who testified before Congress. He's now 18. He's now vaccinated himself, but his mother would not vaccinate her children. She's got 3 other kids, I believe, hadn't vaccinated any of them except the young man. What do you say to parents who think that these vaccines are dangerous to their children?
Vaccines are one of the true health accomplishments of mankind. We can talk about all the things that we've done, antibiotics and new surgeries and techniques and stuff, but truly vaccinations have to rank, in my opinion, as the #1 reason that we as a society are as healthy as we are. And so for parents who are doubtful about immunizations, I'm here today to tell you that I have immunized all 6 of my children. My wife and I are proud parents of 6 children. They are all immunized. Their children, my grandchildren, are immunized. Vaccines are safe. Vaccines are effective. Vaccines save lives.
Okay. Dr. Karam, thank you so much.
Sure.
Have a good one. All right, back to the breaking news on the race to the White House. Beto O'Rourke is now in the race. More on his big announcement at the top of the hour.
There he is on his couch with his wife. Plus, coming up on the show, Congressman Kevin McCarthy, we got Newt Gingrich, we got Dana Lash, and you. You're watching